If I just go silent all of a sudden, it's because I've died during the recording, so just bear with me. There's an insane heat wave right now. TI8 is, I think, less than a month away by the time this video goes up. It seems like everyone's sort of gearing up for that. The buffs have died down, the crazy pocket strats aren't really seeing the light of day in order to keep them as a surprise for the international tournament. It's the calm before the storm. I myself have been spending the last month and a half making short film entries and prepping for that Oracle guide that I promised. And so I thought, while everyone else is having a really serious discussion about the potential picks of TI8, theory crafting and getting their ladder estimates ready, why don't we make a dumb little mid-Chen guide? Hey man, what's to explain? In a world so filled with crazy theory crafting, to find the utmost best strat with millions and millions of dollars on the line, Chen mid is a nice little alternative to all the chaos. It's fun, it's simple, and actually surprisingly effective. Most meme builds end up being memes because of how silly they are and unworkable, but Chen mid is actually a meme because of how funnily successful it is. Don't get me wrong, it's still a really, it's a silly build, reserved for a 5-stack with understanding friends or a solo game with the 4 most unnaturally caring and forgiving and progressive teammates the world's ever seen. I'm not saying they don't exist, but it's probably best not to try and find them by doing this build. So yeah, we build Dagon. The fascinating thing about Chen these days is that because jungle is effectively dead, Chen's had to make do with getting one creep and immediately heading to lane to harass with that creep, and essentially just be a laner. Usually it's the off lane, and never mid. I wonder why. With it already said that we are going mid, the heroes that we personally counter and that counter us are a little different. The benefit that we have to going mid is that Chen actually doesn't have the worst damage. His attack projectile speed is alright and he's got 650 range. With all that alone, he's already a pretty good mid, but it's boosted up by a potential 100 pure damage nuke at a 60 mana cost and a 70 mana 8-second slow. These are kind of fantastic. And then of course Holy Persuasion, but that's really a slippery slope and I don't really want to depend on that. If the camp closest to you gives you a Satyr or a Troll, you're in business. If it gives you a Wild Wing, you can just cast Tornado and M-click the enemy mid with it. And if you get a Centaur boo, if you get a Hellbear boo, and if you find you accidentally self-blocked it while checking, well, at that point it's best to just go back to mid quietly and not say a word. But honestly, if you're going to be dominating any creep, can it be the little kobolds? And not the kobold foreman with the actual powerful movement speed aura, straight up the kobold, just kobold. I can't think of a single game in which someone actually picked that guy deliberately. Who knows, man? Maybe he's secretly the cutest and most powerful creep in the game. You gotta give him a chance. With all these spells in mind, we can absolutely dominate melee and short-ranged heroes. If they're always in range for Test of Faith and Penitent spam, we can honestly cast it on them every single time it's off cooldown. When you know it'll be a melee or short-ranged opponent no matter what, either because the person who's mid right now isn't ever gonna swap, or if he does, he ends up being replaced by another short-ranged hero, then absolutely, totally get Holy Persuasion. Next are glass cannons, regardless of range. We're going Dagon, right? If we fully commit, like you know we will, you'll be maxing Test of Faith, Penitence, getting Dagon 5 and even Earthblade. If they're legitimately fragile enough, you can insta-kill a foe with this combo. Plus, laning against them is really easy with the constant harass that we deal. And then lastly are just heroes with no wave clear. I'm not like those mid-Chen advocates who disregard Holy Persuasion because it's hard to use. I think Chen's actually great at mid because of it. Honestly, just going into jungle every couple of waves to stockpile a creep, not even using it, and then when you're up against a mid opponent who can't deal with those creeps, you can rush it and pretty much guarantee a tower. And towers give money. And money buys Dagon parts. It sort of all works out in the end. On the flip side though, obviously heroes who can wave clear are problematic, especially heroes who can insta-kill your creeps, Midas, Inch, Clinks, that sort of thing. It's actually one of those rare times in a real game where you could actually justify this build. Guys, I picked Chen and wanted to support, but if I max Holy Persuasion, I'm just helping the enemy, really. I better go mid and get Dagon. Alright then, that makes sense. That's my impression of, I guess, you? I'm so sorry. Under that would be heroes that don't die to our burst, especially once you realize that it's 40 minutes in and it's actually all we've got. Oops. And then there's specific mid lane dominators that we can't necessarily keep up with. SF and Zeus and that sort of thing. For now, just wait until that Dagon arrives. We can farm pretty safely before that. Honestly, at this point, I've talked enough about every creep in like 1,000 other videos, and if you ignore creeps just entirely, Chen's surprisingly straightforward. Regardless, here's the build. If you think we'd need it, you can get Hand of God before level 9, and it's a bit of a mana hog, so I wouldn't really get it. It doesn't really directly get us kills either, it's not an offensive spell. You know what is though? Penitence. Penitence is a brutal 36% damage amp at level 4. Just to put it into perspective, Bloodseeker's amp is 40% and also makes that enemy deal 40% more damage, which can utterly screw you if you accidentally put it on that Divine Rapier sniper back there. And Shadow Demon Soulcatcher is 50%, but on a random hero in the AoE. Penitence is 36% for 8 seconds with an additional 36% slow, with which to facilitate even more damage that will end up being amped by Penitence. A delicious cycle, you know? It amps everything, even pure damage spells, like Test of Faith deals anything from 50 damage to 100 damage pure at level 1, and 200 to 400 at level 4. So yes, that means 60 mana for a potential 100 damage nuke, and 120 mana for a potential 400 damage nuke. Pure. Spam this all the time. And I guess cross your fingers. It's never really come up, right? No one ever really thinks of Chen when they think of RNG heroes. But Chen has the potential to deal, I think, 1 billion damage if you just cast this constantly. Then it's Holy Persuasion, but that just goes without saying, you know? And maybe I'll delve more into that again with my actual good Chen guide on the horizon. And finally, Hand of God. It heals. And yes, it works on everyone. And you knew that, don't pretend like you didn't. Quit hogging it and only using it when you're in need of it. If your teammates didn't report you for going Chen mid, then they sure as hell will for pulling shit like that. Use it to save your teammates. Don't hog it. So here we go, it's pretty basic from here on in. Null Talisman, Fairy Fire, we're going the prototypical Int Hero mid build here. Every time Test of Faith is off of cooldown, you put it back on cooldown, attack the guy. The only time you should hold off on doing it is when Penitence is also a couple of seconds away from being off of cooldown. Test of Faith has a 16-second cooldown, Penitence has a 14-second cooldown, and while they're close enough, they sometimes get out of sync. Don't worry about it, as long as you're using both of them pretty much at the same time, overlapping. Obviously with Penitence before Test of Faith, you are in good hands. Just doing the math, a max damage Test of Faith with Penitence on a person is 544 pure damage. If you're lucky enough to get the max damage. But let's say you are. Then you can build Blink, build Dagon, build Ethereal Blade. Before long, you could be jumping in and bursting for approximately, on average, 1,720 damage. You could be getting upwards to 3,000 damage if you're really, really lucky on a potentially 6-second cooldown. 6-second cooldown! And that's pretty much all there is to it. I mean, damn, dude. You burst people. We'll delve more into Chen at a later date, you know. But for now, go cheese your way into some wins. And boy, is my face gonna be red if this ends up actually being a staple of TI8.